Welcome back to London's Dark Archives, in episode 2 of our exploration into the Great Train Robbery, the heist that would become the stuff of legend. Last time, we stepped into the gritty underworld of 1960s Britain, where post-war austerity collided with the rise of organised crime. We met the key players like Bruce Reynolds, Ronnie Biggs and Buster Edwards, each with their own story of ambition, cunning and an hunger for the big score. We saw how their paths crossed, and the first whispers of a grand idea began to echo through the smoky back rooms of South London. But an idea is just that, an idea, until it's shaped into something real. How does a gang of criminals go from small-time robberies and black market deals to one of the most daring heists in British history? This is where the story takes a turn. In this episode, we'll uncover the start of the planning, the crucial inside knowledge the gang gathered, and a clever reconnaissance that brought the plan to life. We'll also look at how the gang tested their nerve and their methods with a smaller scale robbery that would become the ultimate practice run for the Great Train Robbery. So let's begin. The pieces are falling into place, the players are taking their positions, and the idea is about to be born. Before we dive into the unfolded drama, let's take a moment to remind ourselves of a key figure who was instrumental in making the Great Train Robbery possible, the Ulsterman. In our last episode, we discussed this shadowy character who provided the gang with a vital piece of the puzzle, insider knowledge of the Royal Mail train's operations. Whether his identity was Patrick McKenna, a Belfast-born postal worker, or another mysterious figure like Sammy Ulsterman, one thing is clear: without the Ulsterman, the gang wouldn't have known about the cash-filled, high-value package carriage or the vulnerabilities in the train schedule. He was their silent accomplice, slipping crucial information into their hands and vanishing back into the shadows. Now, armed with the intelligence they needed, the gang was ready to move from idea into action. But first they needed a plan, and every great plan begins with a spark. Bruce Reynolds had always dreamed of pulling off the ultimate heist. He wasn't just after money, he craved the thrill, the artistry of it all. To him, it was a carefully choreographed performance, and the Royal Mail train, that was his stage. Reynolds was the mastermind. He'd heard about the treasure trove of cash travelling by rail between Glasgow and London every night. Millions of pounds in used banknotes, bundled up and destined for destruction. Money that could disappear without leaving a trace. It was the perfect target. But Reynolds weren't working alone. His trusted confidant, Gordon Goody, the smooth-talking charmer, and Buster Edwards, the reliable old-school thief, were just as intrigued by the possibilities. Together, they began to sketch out the broad strokes of the plan. Yet Reynolds knew to pull this off, they would need more than brute force. They would need intelligence, discipline, and an army of specialists. That's when they turned to a man with a reputation for meticulous organisation, Roy James. James, known as the Weasel for his wiry frame and quick thinking, was a planner, a man who could anticipate problems before they arose. He'd become Reynolds' right hand, a key player in transforming the dream into reality. The gang needed information, and lots of it. They had to understand every detail about the Royal Mail train's route, its cargo and its security. This is where the gang's ingenuity shone. Disguised as railway workers, some of the men began scouting stations along the train's path. Others posed as delivery drivers, gaining access to loading docks to observe how the high-value packages were handled. They even stationed lookouts at key points along the line, timing the trains it passed to ensure their plan would unfold with military precision. But intelligence weren't just gathered by observation. Through a network of contacts, some willing, others coerced, the gang pieced together a map of the train's vulnerabilities. From the scheduling of the crew to the outdated security protocols, every detail was scrutinised, every weakness noted. And then there was the inside man, the train driver Reynolds had recruited, known only as Pop, a retired railwayman. Pop was promised a cut of the oil in exchange for his expertise. He'd be their ace in the hole, the man who could keep the train moving once they'd taken control. With Pop's knowledge of the tracks and signal systems, the gang's chance of escape increased dramatically. Before attempting a heist as ambitious as robbing the Royal Mail train, the gang needed a trial run, a chance to test their skills, refine their methods, build their confidence. That opportunity came in November 1962, in the form of what would later be known as the airport job. The target, was BOAC's Comet House, London Airport, an high-value transport depot where money and goods passed through before being flown overseas. Gordon Goody and Bruce Reynolds, the gang's undisputed leaders, had chosen this location carefully. The operation was served as both a lucrative payday and a dress rehearsal for the grander scheme they were already dreaming about. Intelligence suggested that a substantial sum of money in used banknotes was scheduled for a shipment overseas. To Reynolds and Goody it was the perfect target. Valuable enough to be worth their while, but not so heavily guarded as to be impossible. On the night of the job, the gang struck with precision. Disguised as airport workers, they bypassed initial security checks, blended into the bustling atmosphere of Comet House. Armed with crowbars in their wits, they broke into the depot, overpowering guards and quickly locating the cash. Within minutes, they'd loaded the loot into their getaway vehicles and were speeding away into the night. But the ice weren't without its problems. One of the getaway drivers, nervous and inexperienced, made a critical error, taking a wrong turn and nearly leading the gang straight into the arms of the patrolling police. Chaos erupted as they scrambled to correct course, narrowly avoiding capture. To make matters worse, their chosen hideout, a hastily selected location, proved inadequate. The gang spent hours nervously waiting for the area to quiet down, the stolen money hidden in plain sight. It was a harrowing experience, one that exposed the cracks in their logistics and the risks of insufficient planning. Despite these setbacks, the airport job was deemed a success. The gang walked away with 62 grand, a small fortune in 1962, and a wealth of experience that would prove invaluable. They learned the importance of precise timing, of securing a reliable escape route, and of having a well-prepared safe house where they could lay low after the job. Reynolds, ever the perfectionist, took these lessons to heart. He knew the Royal Mail train heist would demand even greater level of planning, coordination and discipline. If they wanted to pull it off, they couldn't afford even the smallest mistake. The airport job was a turning point. It showed the gang what they were capable of and where they needed to improve. With their confidence bolstered and their lessons learned, they turned their full attention to the heist that would define their legacy. With the success of the airport job under their belts, the gang had proved they could execute high-stakes robbery with precision, but robbing a mail train carrying millions of pounds in used banknotes was an entirely different challenge. Unlike a cash depot or an airport office, a moving train didn't have opening hours or a shift change to exploit. There were no walls to break through, no safes to crack, with steel tracks stretching endlessly through the countryside and a tight schedule that never wavered. They needed more than brute force. This would require military-level planning, a way to bring the train to halt without raising suspicion, and a system to offload and disappear before the alarm was raised. The gang turned to their informants, their contacts in the railway system, and their own cunning to devise a way to stop the train in its tracks, literally. Their idea was ambitious. It was even reckless. As the gang pieced it together, their confidence grew. They weren't just planning the heist, they was orchestrating in a moment that would stun the country. If they could pull it off, they'd be walking away with a fortune. If they failed, they'd be looking at prison for the rest of their lives. The stakes had never been higher. In the next episode, we'll dive deep into meticulous planning of the Great Train Robbery, how the gang studied train schedules, scouted the perfect location, and devised the ingenious trick that would bring a 400-ton locomotive to a dead stop in the middle of the night. The final pieces were falling into place, and soon the plan would be set in motion. The real game is about to begin.